Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Michael and this is another video of the tutorial for Python beginners on our way to the data science professional. So in this video we're gonna talk about loops. Before we started, let's recap a little bit. In this course we already covered some basic data types. We talk about string operations, mathematical operations, we talk about conditions, and now let's talk about loops. So loops, also with the conditions, are essential building parts of each programming language. And let's dive into the examples into Visual Studio Code. So as you can see, I'm in the file called loops.py, which you can find at my GitHub, which I provide in the description below. And for the sake of example, I will use two variables. The first one is called numbers, which consists of a standard list with numbers, which I explained in the previous video. And the second one is letters, where are string characters, one character long letters in the list. Now let's go to loop. In the Python we have two main loops. One is called the for loop and the other one is the while loop. So let's talk about for loop. So for loop consists of the definition and the body. So basically the principle is the same as in case of condition. So in the for loop we are using the keyword for followed by the iteration variable, then in, and then the thing which we want to iterate through, the variable which we want to iterate through in this case. So we want to iterate through each number, and now the for loop is running the body in loops for each of the object within the variable we want to iterate through. So in this case, for each of the number, the body will be assigned. And now the value of the given number, which the given loop is running for, will be in the variable called number in this case, okay? So we are iterating through these numbers, and every time the number has a different value based on the iteration in which we are currently. So in the first iteration, the number will have value of 1. In the second, the value of number will be 2, 3, 4, and so on. Sounds fairly easy. This is very simple example. Let's run it. So in order to run in Visual Studio Code the Python code from the file, you need to run the interpreter with running Python 3. Now we are in the interpreter. Now select the variable which we want to run. Let's run both of them. So now we have in memory our variables, and now we can run the loop. Press enter. So as you can see, the content of the numbers was printed into the screen. Yes, if I add here something like 10, highlight it, run it, and then run the loop. I'm always pressing Shift Enter to run the selected code as always. Now when the loop has these dots here, you need to go here and press Enter. And as you can see, the 10 was outputted. Fairly easy. Before we move on, I want to teach you some hack. Imagine you want to have a loop which will go, for example, 4 times. And you want always to have the iteration variable to have the value of these numbers. So you want to create something like a counter. And because to write this long array is too handy, you don't have a lot of time. For example, imagine you want to iterate through hundreds of examples. You don't want to run this list with 100 elements. Python provides us some built-in function called range. And range, when you run something like this, will create a range with a length of 4. So if I run this, it will return something called a range object, right? Or enumerator. So we don't see exactly the list, but we can transform this range object into the list with the function list. So when you run a range object within the list function, it will return the array started from 0 up to the upper border, which is in this case 4. But because this is an open interval, the 4 is excluded. So you can specify the range also like that. Or if you don't want to start with 0, you can start from 1. The third parameter of the range function is the increment. For example, if you want to start from 0 incrementing by 2 up to 10, you can run the range function like this. Or you can decrement like this. Yeah, feel free to experiment with the range function. You can create lists as big as you want. And why am I showing you this example? Because many times you want to iterate through this range. So for example, let's write a function which will output numbers starting from 0 up to 10 increased by 2. So this is how you can write it simpler without defining the big list as I did in the previous example. So like this. So that was the for loop. As you can see, you need some object to iterate through. The other thing, the other loop used in the Python is called the while loop, and the while loop is based on the condition. So up until a certain condition is true, the loop will run, but when the condition is false, the loop will stop. Let me show you an example. For example, specify a variable called counter and set it to 0, and we want to run the body of the loop up until the counter is less than equal than 5. So, and always we are printing the counter. So as you can see, the body will be run every time the condition is true. So be aware that I'm always incrementing the counter at the end of the body of the while loop, right? Without this, we will end up in infinite loop, which will cause problems to your computer. So please don't forget the last line in order, to somewhere fulfill the condition. When you will omit this, you can try it on yourself, it will suddenly print up 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 all the time, because the loop will infinitely run. And as the Python interpreter is very fast, because your computer is very fast, you will see a lot of zeros. So let's try to run this code. And as you can see, we have the numbers starting from 0 up to 5. And as you can see, because I specified the condition that the counter should be less and greater than 5, the 5 was printed also. If I didn't specify this 5, so it's an open interval, the 5 won't be printed. Again, feel free to experiment, write down your own loops. You can put here any condition you want. So remember the condition video from the if-else statement video from the last video, and try to fill here some different conditions. You can also put here and or the same way as the if-else statement was set up. Okay, now let's talk about break. So sometimes you are in the situation that you are running a loop and you want to sometimes break the loop. For example, look at this. As I said, you can put any boolean in the condition part of the while loop. So in this case, we are saying that we want to iterate forever. And we reach this by providing the true as the conditional parameter of the while loop. So in this case, the while loop will run forever. But, so we are printing the counter, and at the end of the body, we are always incrementing the counter. Discuss that we are incrementing the value at the end of each cycle. Yes? But look, here is an if condition, and this if condition says that if the counter is greater or equal than 5, we want to break the loop. Now, how does the break knows what do we want to end? The break is always looking for the context where it resides. And in this case, it resides in the context of if, but if is not a loop, so it is looking outside of the if, and it sees that it is in the while loop, so it knows that we want to terminate the while loop in this case. Exactly. So basically, this is exactly, well, not exactly the same, but yeah, it's exactly the same as this while loop. So what will be the output in this case? What do you think? Will be the 5 outputted or not? Let's run it down. And as we can see, the while loop printed also the 5. Now let's go step by step. So counter is set to 0, that's the line 28. We go to line 29. While loop is set to true. True is always true. So we go to the body. Now, print counter, we print 0. That's the first 0. Then we go to the if statement. If 0, in this case, is greater than equal than 5. Is it true? No. So we don't go to break. We go to line 33. We increment the counter, and because we are in the while loop, we go back to the while loop condition. True is always true. We print the counter. In this case, it is 1. Is it greater than equal than 5? No. Again, increment and so on, up until it's 4. Imagine it's 4. Now we are in the 4. So we print the 4 and we go to this if statement. Is it true? No, because 4 is not greater than equal than 5. So we increment it by 1 and print the 5 in the next loop. Now you see it. If we move this counter behind the loop, behind the if condition, we will end up with different output, and in this case the output will be, what do you think? Zero up until 4. Exactly. So I hope this step-by-step while loop help you to better understand how the while loop goes. Okay, let's go to another example. Do you remember how I defined the letters at the beginning? They consist of my name, so my name's letters. So now we want, in this example over here, iterate through letters. And if the letter is not equals to C, we will output the letter. So let me just copy paste this letter definition closer, so you will see what is exactly happening. So look at it. So how the for loop works once again. So it always assigns to the letter variable the given value of the iterator. So in the first loop, the letter will be equal to M. Now we go to the body. If M doesn't equal to C, print letter. M is not equal to C, so we will print the M. Y. We go to the next iteration. In this case, the letter will be equal to Y. Is Y equal to C? No, we are printing. Then C. C is equal to C. That means we are not printing anything, and we are directly going to the next iteration with H. Is H equal to C? No, we are printing the H. A is not equal to C. L is not equal to C. So both of these guys will be outputted. Let's try out. As you can see, Mihal without C was outputted. So the correct pronunciation of my name is Michal, to be correct. Now, there is also something which is called continue, right? And what does continue do? Let's say, I will again rewrite the letters close to the definition so you can see it. Let's see, we go step by step. In the first iteration, the letter will be equal to M. If M is equal to C, it's not, we are skipping it. We are printing the letter. But what if the letter is equal to C? In this case, we are skipping the rest of the loop body and we are going directly to the next iteration. So the continue will skip, in this case, the print function and will directly go to the next letter. Yes? So that's opposite of break, basically. Break is breaking the whole cycle, while the continue is skipping the given loop, iteration and is continuing to the next iteration. Sounds fairly easy. So guys, that was the for and while loop in the Python. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something new. Feel free to experiment on your own in your Python interpreter, in your Visual Studio Code. I hope I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much.